car and the people.
Well, I'd just like to welcome everybody here on this very special occasion. Unfortunately, Mayor Max Hadlow can't be here today, and with his background being a mechanic, you can understand that he was actually quite upset that he can't, but he has promised that he will try to get here this afternoon, and if not, he'll actually try to get down there to the dinner this evening. Town, village, has a history of its own, and every single piece of history is really quite unique. That we're not only celebrating a piece of Goulburn's history, what we're actually doing is celebrating a bit of Australia's history. And maybe some might think that we're actually rewriting some of the history of today.
Only the Victorians.
Only the Victorians, that's right. Australia held its first motorcar Grand Prix right here in Goulburn. Not just in Goulburn, but actually here at the old racecourse. It was a very hot and a very dusty day, and they had about 3,000 spectators which gathered to see the Grand Prix. And how the Grand Prix worked then was that they had 3 heats. 2 drivers were truly history makers themselves. Now I'm going to read their names out because I can't afford to get one of them wrong amongst a group of people like you. Hope Bartlett, Jack O'Rourke, Peter White, Rajo Morgan and Don Harkness. I would also like to say that we're very, very fortunate today because we actually have Don Harkness's granddaughter and her family here who came down from Sydney.
What was the winner's name again?
Jeff Meredith.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm quite new to the job. I only started with Goulburn District Tourism about 5 weeks ago, just when this started to be organised. By the enthusiasm and the energy from all the people who have put. So on behalf of Goulburn District Tourism and the community of Goulburn, I'd really like to thank you all very much for making this happen. It took 5 weeks to organise it, and we had this thing called Christmas which interrupted the organisation. We didn't quite get that one here on the day. On the day, in 15th of January 19, got some draft horses here on the day which will also do some laps and aircraft. So please have a great day, and once again, thank you. No, if it's green, I mow it. We'll leave it out for the water to ship. The water to see it will be fine.
Never ready row with the water.
Driver of the gate for his house? No, not quite.
What? Coast out yet? Oh, alright.
Last minute decision. Last minute decision.
Sign it with the... Okay, let's go back.
and he's driving, and I'm nervous. All I've done for about the last 4 days. Yeah, we've got to sign a form over with Robin somewhere. No, get there. Still going or you? Kind of it. Is this what they call well worn but worn well? That's right.
AJ, yes.
It's a three.
Single cylinder. Wayne Adams, tell us more about this exotic old thing.
Right, well, this bike actually was owned by Kev Carmody, who was one of the racers at the 1927 GP that they had here in Goulburn. And part of that race program, there was an international bike race, and Kev Carmody, representing Australia, rode an AJ, and there was Spencer Stratton from New Zealand, he had an Indian, and there was a Guy Brown from the States on a Harley Davidson. So, and this bike, the major portion of it was belonged to Kev Carmody, and it was rescued from under a house at Maroubra about 10 years ago, and it's been painstakingly put together.
Now, what is this?
It's a 350 overhead valve, and these were the first of the real out-and-out races that had overhead valve gear. They were probably the most popular and the most successful of these new breed of overhead valve engines. They had a total loss system where the oil held in the tank, went into pumped through the motor and then thrown out through the back onto a chain. They had a special racing gearbox which was sort of bolted up underneath, and of course they had still the racing sort of carburettors.
Well, the way you blokes have got it today, it looks like it'll last forever, longer than you and I, hey? Thanks, Wayne.
Right.
He sits in the air, son.
Oh, mate, I broke getting into it. It's got a rotary heater.
I did,
A
yes.
rotary heater, mate. What? Have you ever seen the way these co-brushes burn?
Now, how would you get your feet in there? You
It's very difficult here.
You've got to be pretty tricky.
It in the front and move it back a little.
And that's the
Your legs will drop.
That's the antique cane.
Yeah, I'll put it in the front.
So what's this? Oh, this is advance retard?
And fence retard.
I think that's too much. That's
No, that's where the brass plants go. Okay. Yeah. With thanks to the 3 or 4 people who came here.
1912 T-model Ford in immaculate condition. Who is the proud owner?
Tiny Duck.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about the car. How long have you had it? You're the custodian. You can't own these things anymore, I believe.
About 25 years ago, I'd say.
In this sort of condition?
Oh, I built it. No, I only started the chassis.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a complete restoration.
Absolutely complete. And thousands of miles running around looking for junk.
That's how you got the parts, from junk, searching the country.
Yeah, scraps, round loops, everything picking up.
And is everything authentic?
Yep.
Everything?
Pretty well.
That's hard to believe, you know. But how many of these were made, do you reckon?
Well, I have got it at home, but I don't know exactly, but I've got it all at home in the book there, but there's quite a few. This is a veteran, not a vintage.
Did you have to search overseas to?
Yeah, the tail light comes from New Jersey in America. It was on the front of a house, and it was like the Black Hour Calcutta. Had a kerosene light in it, and it took me I think it took me a month to clean it up to get back to the brass.
Yeah, let's have a look at this. Now, where did it come from?
From New Jersey in America.
Did you go over there to find it, or somebody sent it to you?
No, I bought it off Colin Wade. That diff was in the Grand Prix 2 years. She was pitted.
Yeah, where'd you find that?
Out of Trafalgar.
Oh.
And it comes from Trafalgar.
Well, I'd venture a guess that what was this is modern paint, of course, would be better than the originals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Henry only done them in black.
And what's this unit on the running board?
That's carbide paint that runs the lights, they're carbide.
Uh-huh. And it's funneled through to the headlamp.
It runs through to the headlights. See there's a little tube there?
Yeah.
And there's a rubber tube comes up and through and onto the jets in here. And that runs the headlights.
Now, how do you know how fast you're going? What do you use for a speedo?
It's here. It's a speedo.
This is the mechanism? I don't know if that'd be pretty optimistic. It runs to 60 miles per hour. What would the thing cruise at?
It does 60, you want to hang on.
Yeah. Now, 60 mile an hour would be a terrifying speed, wouldn't it?
Oh, on these it will. You do it down in front of water.
Get out of the way!
see a little cardboard, but
Lost the propeller bush, yeah. And that's and what are you trying to make? What are you making? Kleiner drum. Yeah. Dolomite, front dolomite back. And it's got the lino. And who made you act for you? Hang on.
Special?
Now, why don't you tell me about your car?
It's a big red heap of shit, but I love it. Yeah.
How long have you had it?
Since I was 14 and I paid 14 quid for it. Do you think I got ripped off?
I do.
Yeah, well I think I've done all right over the years because it only works out about $2 a year that it's cost me to own it.
Hang on. What sort of an engine is it, and how does it run? It's magneto driven.
Yeah, it's a 1918 Model T Ford engine with a Rajo overhead valve conversion and a magneto ignition system that works very crudely.
When you say crudely, I mean it works.
Oh, it works, yes, yeah, but I mean, it's very agricultural. There's not a lot of time or thought or effort. Perhaps there was because the two boys who built it were only 18 and 20 at the time, and that was 1922. So not too bad for a couple of country lads from Lura who built this car.
I'd call them geniuses for 1922.
Yeah, I think they were pretty good too.
What become of them, I wonder? They go for bigger and better things?
Yes, the young fellow who built this car finished up designing aircraft for the British War Ministry for World War II.
They are. We rest our case.
Yep.
Another Australian quite achiever, I guess, huh?
Oh yeah, incredible man. Yes.
What was his name?
Jeff Wickner, and his story's told in the book The Flight of the Halifax. He actually flew a Halifax bomber back to Australia after World War II with a load of fare-paying passengers, and the interesting thing is that the engineer on the flight was Tom Sulman.
How about that? I'm going to have a look for that.
Yeah, Flight of the Halifax. They came to Lura in a Cobb & Co coach, and he finished up having a personal Spitfire provided by the RAF when he was designing for them.
Thanks very much.
My pleasure. It towed an aeroplane on a trailer from Sydney to Brisbane, and that aeroplane which the Wickners built set the Australian altitude record at the time. So that's a pretty incredible thing. It was road registered and they put a trailer behind it, put the aeroplane on the trailer and towed it to Queensland.
You must have been.
But incredibly
Ingenuity.
yeah, thought about, you know, as you said, for two young fellows at the time, the two brothers, to come up with that double chassis idea. And obviously the local blacksmith had a lot to do with it because there's various bits on the car where you can see where the local blacksmith has
forged them.
Yeah, forged bits. Bracket on the other side of the car, you can see the hammer marks on it, you know. And when I restored the car, I thought they must remain. You know, you can't take that sort of history away from the car.
We're going to go, just so we don't get time, we're going to lift this one, we're going to ride. We're going to...
Now, I don't care how clever we are, there's one thing we mechanics cannot do, and that's build a tyre. Where do you get tyres these days for that?
Oh, they're actually made on American moulds, but made in Taiwan and Korea now. Unfortunately, this type of tyre doesn't stay on very well on modern bitumen. The car's much better to drive, or much safer to drive, on dirt or in the rain when you can get a bit of slip. The modern hot mix gets too much grip and it pulls the tyres off the rim.
Oh,
And that's fairly exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Again.
That's it, yeah. Half horsepower.
1.5 horsepower. Look at the average speed.
Larry Perkins, LP, did you see that?
Clean your ear.
Oh, that was the top one.
It's all right, it's all the same.
Did you shake them up? E2 purple.
Yeah, use mine.
E.
He's already got the book. He's already got the book. Yeah, and that's actually the 12-1 win, so basically.
Find a place for this on the wall. Very impressive. Thank you very much. That brought the motor car Grand Prix to life. I think he deserves a hand.
Thank you very
Eric, I'm informed that today is your birthday. Ready? Good on you, Eric.
He's not doing it for himself, he just doesn't want to be in the picture, but it was Gil, and only Gil, that got it going. And Gil, you know you've done most of the work and it's been great.
No, Robert, and you were responsible.
And Christmas was in the middle, everything was not going to happen again. This is the 75th anniversary, it's either now or never.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Needham, and don't hold that against me.
No, you're earlier. You're earlier. You got from Victoria.
I'd just like to say, it's an amazing thing. We haven't decided to come up here on Sunday, but on Sunday to come here today. But the amazing thing is the germination of all this comes from that original committee who organised the first all-historic Emeroo in 1976. And I've heard it said there are something like 7 of the original people here tonight. Those people who organised from a meeting as the original that black to the culmination of it. Thank you very much.
1980 would be the next, not 1980, 80 years would be the next logical thing to think.
John's already still there all open his sleeve and we haven't even started. John's got a piece of paper. John seems to be moulding.
What are you doing up there?
Show tonight. Still.
Always.
Now John's got a marvellous list written on a screwed up piece of
in case you hadn't met him, I'm John Medley, in case you haven't met me. The first thing I'd like to do, very sincerely, very importantly, is say to all of us here tonight, despite all the things that have been already said, this thing could not have happened as a result of various people's work, but most of all, Robin Snow. And I think we should very sincerely thank Robin. Get dressed like that. I mean, we were seriously misinformed, apparently. I've looked at the scruffy way that other people have been dressed, and that's the reason for these feathers. Righto. Can I mention to you some stories? I think they're nice. Terry Harris, who you may not know, took one look at the amazing Dick Vermeulen, who, if you don't know him, is a tall, thin, unshaven Queenslander with usually a dirty cap, slightly sideways on the head, enroll your own, hanging from his bottom lip saying, mate.
He doesn't drive on that bloody MG,
Wait, Dick Vermeulen was described by Terry Harris. He looked him up and down. Terry said, look at him, professional Queenslander. Isn't that a nice line? And it was Terry that Dick Cobden rang up, having seen the advertisement that Armo and I really caused to be put in the paper. Lovely man. What's this all about, Terry? What's this 1927 thing in Goulburn all about? Terry, the man who said about Dick Vermeulen said, oh, just a way of sticking it right up the Victorians, Dick. And Dick said, oh, wonderful.
just one book, which I thought was a really nice thing, despite the implications that John Needham was trying to make earlier. Anyway, Kingy had a lot to do with that. He talked to Robin on the phone, and Robin, as nice as ever, said, well, what do you think of this one, Bob? And Kingy said, I wish it would go away. That's not knowing some of the stuff that had gone on in the background over the last hectic month for a whole lot of people. Rang me on whatever night that was and said, why don't you just write out a one-page thing, email it to me, and I'll get it on one of these current affairs programs, just put in the word controversial. You know, the Victorians all this time have been claiming 1928 Australian Grand Prix. In fact, Goulburn got it in 1927. Controversial, you could do all that. Get it to me. Well, I sent her the stuff that's in the program, and she apparently didn't get it. But her best line, I thought, was, what you could do to make it really controversial is you could say, you could claim that the Victorians knew this the whole time. They just didn't let anybody else know.
I've got a bit of a problem with this. Being an ex-Victorian, transient South Australian, acclimatised West Australian, living in New South Wales, I don't understand all this, what's going on. I mean, if you know Bob King, you never know what's going on.
There's one thing, Cummo's the only person that I know of who in the last month has been to a 50th anniversary of an Australian Grand Prix and a 75th anniversary of an Australian Grand Prix. How about that? And he ran in the one that was the 50th. Nice one.
I think it was the worst day of my life, is I made some lifelong friends in West Australia, and that made up for being the worst motor race I've ever been to. We ran out of money before we got to Perth. We're only at Southern Cross. So, and then blowing up on the third lap, blew a head gasket. What was the only thing we didn't bring? A spare head gasket. Where do we find a spare head gasket? At the garage next to the start line on the Monday morning. 1951 AGP. But lifelong friendship, and that makes all the difference, and that's what tonight's all about. Lifelong friendships.
At the first all-historic Amaroo meeting that John Needham mentioned earlier, somebody was recalling the Interstate Grovelling Mat Challenge during across to South Australia in, I think, 1975 to race my car, towed by his tow car with a borrowed trailer, and we're all out of money and disgusting stuff. And the whole thing, I remember the bit about the ballet dancer. I mean, come on, I can tell you that it wasn't pretty. And the bit about the Japanese restaurant and that, what was his name? Jeff Whittingham. Oh, awful stuff. Cummo took from Murray Bridge to West Wyalong to tell me the story of going to Western Australia in 1951. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life, ladies and gentlemen. And then we called into the Kelso pub because he was a bit peckish at 10 o'clock at night, and we walked into a world convention of the village idiots. They're all mates who come home to the diddle. This based my information on sort of what I had at that time. Now, as a number of people have said, what has occurred in the last month is just incredible. For example, the amount of additional knowledge that I've got about this occasion in 1927 is incredible. Now, this thing in 1927, to my knowledge, which goes back, 50 years, never appeared. It does not exist in any of the motoring press at the time. And assumed that the fronty Ford he ran that day here 75 years ago was the single-seater with the Morris Cowley shaped bullnose Morris Cowley radio. It was finishing straight, hit the fence, and full factory racing Frontenac, of whom I'm one. So it was, thank you Gil, double overhead camshaft. There were a whole lot of other things that I didn't know that I can now attend to. And then I ended up, but Armo, it was Paul Armstrong's fault Paul Armstrong really put the advertisement in the paper in Peter McKay's column in the Herald, saying, if you know anything about these people that ran at Goulburn in 1927, ring this number. 32, I know this will just cause you to leap to your feet and shout yes. He's married to the daughter of the doctor that delivered me at birth. Tim, on the basis of that, I'll give you the pen back. Males had heart problems and females had the vapours. And he told me some terrific stories, and he's told me that when he comes down to the Royal Automobile Club next time, he's ringing me up and I'm coming down to have a few drinks with him, or else. Anyway, he told this story about, he said, you know how Vauxhall 3098 brakes were never very good? He said, as a small child, I was in the car when Dad was driving the Vauxhall 3098 that's now owned by Murray McDonough, Gowings, to buy some things at Gowings. And he approached Gowings and he sort of gave the wheel a bit of a twitch, and a nasty combination of Vauxhall 3098 brakes, tram lines and wet road meant that he executed a very neat 180 degrees and found himself heading in the opposite direction. And his wife, apparently, according to his son, his wife said, I thought we were going to Gowings. And Frank Parle is alleged to have said, I'm doing my best, dear. Well, that Jack O'Rourke ended up as the boss of what is now the RTA. And he said, when I was a boy, my first licence had J.J. O'Rourke written across the bottom of it. And there'd be people in the room that may well remember that. Same man as drove Brescia Bugatti here 75 years ago. And he said, he was an amazing man, a great personality. The only problem was, he got discovered in the wrong bed. I said, oh, right, to the son. And he said, yeah, he got the DCM. And I said, what was that? He said, don't come Monday. So there you go.
Notice the colour of this microphone. I think John Laws has had it before me.
Sorry, but when John Medley was talking then, he was talking about being contacted about writing in the program. But as John Medley, and we all know because John Medley's taught us, don't let facts spoil a good story. It wasn't me that contacted him, it was Judith. Where are you, Judith? Stand up. Judith was the one. We hadn't met Judith before our last few meeting, and she came along as part of the pit crew, I guess, for that gorgeous little Stangalini.
Well, about today, the thing that I was really impressed with was having all the living family of the Harkness descendants here today, immediately post-war. In fact, November 1945, and you can't be much immediate post-war than that.
Christ, you're old.
It's only caused by age.
I told you that a week ago.
And at Olympic Park in Melbourne in 1922, and subsequently at the old Aspendale circuit, because even in those days there was them and us. There was the vintage, the Victorian Light Car Club, which became the Light Car Club of Australia eventually, and the other blokes. And because it was a 2-litre thing at Phillip Island, there was two sort of sections of the sport even in those days. Up meetings like they used to. And that was then in 1946. Nothing's changed. And just to prove it, they ran the World Sports Car Championship at Sandown, and it was a complete and utter financial disaster. They got dudded by all the smart poms, but just to prove that it was a disaster, they ran it a second time and put them out of business. Yes, John's not too sure. No, he's Robbie. I'm not too sure about that.
Why did you?
It's his fault.
Thanks, mate.
just amazing that something like this can happen in 5 weeks. It's just extraordinary. So, if not, come to gear. Gear's on tomorrow. Blues in the Rico. Okay, thank you.
Previous president of the HSRCA, and he bought it from a chap in Victoria called Rick Perry, who'd owned the car for 20 years. Peter had been badgering him for some time for him to sell it to him. Peter went to America, worked for reasons, and found he couldn't use the car here, so I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time to purchase it. But the car was built in the early 60s by a very clever Alan Lowe. Now, he only built this one car, just a one-off special, and the reason it's called a Nala is a bit corny really, it's Alan backwards. But it's got a Holden grey motor, and it's got a big Godfrey Roots-type supercharger on it. So it's a blown 2.5 litre, runs at 8 pounds pressure, and it goes very well indeed. Not particularly.
Oh, that's all right. It's actually my fantastic to get into. It must be. Henry, what's the difference between the grey and the red? No. One was a bit bigger than the other, I think. That's about it.
This is 2447 cc's, but it's got a Vauxhall steel crank in it, and the crank throw was adjusted by offset grinding the big end journals to get the capacity back again, because the Vauxhall crank was only 2.5, 2.2 litres, I think.
Racing this little number?
This one for about 30 years.
What is it?
It's called an Austin 7 Special. Most Austin 7s that race in Australia are specials. They're made out of touring car bits and pieces and they've been converted.
Well, they're essentially very Australian specials, I guess.
Very Australian specials. Yes, they made them over in England as well.
But nobody ever made a production car with that motor.
Yes. That's out of a 1937 model touring car.
Oh, touring car, I meant racing, yeah.
Yes. No, it's not a racing engine, but it's has been modified and adapted to become a racing engine.
And how big are the pots?
The bigger the pots, it measures 803 cc's.
803?
Which is under a litre.
Now I've seen this thing on the track and it appears incredibly fast for its size.
Well, they've developed 45 horsepower. The original motor developed 16 horsepower.
16 to 45
Yeah.
for the work you've done.
Yeah.
And what sort of terminal velocity, what do you think it could weigh on the
Well,
wind up doing a
it
good
goes
track?
over 100 miles an hour.
100 miles an hour and 800 odd
The
cc's.
factory spent years and years and hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds trying to make a racing car that go over 100 pounds. We succeeded in Australia.
Did you get the car complete, Trevor, when you did all of it, or?
Well, I'm the fourth owner. When I acquired it, it had a Renault 750 motor in it. To go historic racing, I had to make it back into an Austin 7 the way it was originally built.
Now, it was initially built in 1950,
Yes, that was
with a what sort of engine?
with an Austin 7. It was an Austin 7 Special back in those days. 10 years later, it got changed into a Renault Special. Because we were getting a bit short of Austin 7 bits, you see. Now we've...
That model engine is what year?
1937.
1937. What's the engine? Well, we've seen them on display, we've seen them on parade, we've seen them standing still, we've seen them in practice. Now let's see how they race. Wakefield Park, 16th of January 2002, 75 years anniversary of the very first Grand Prix in Australia held here in the Goulburn.
you.